Me personally, I don't care what anyone says to this video, because I will share biblical manuscript in order to blow your ideologies and theories out of the water. The reason why some relationships and friendships within today's society are beyond repairable is due to the fact that 1. Adultery, 2. Fornication were involved. Now, these two sins alone are grievous, and they are extremely deadly, lest they're repented of, and those that were involved are actually in fact delivered from said sin. God doesn't take kindly to fornication outside of marriage and adultery that so happens to involve more than one woman, whether it be within the marriage or outside of marriage. And again, vice versa for you women. Now, I don't know what the word's called for you women, polyamory, I think it is, or something along those lines. It's polygamy for men. Polygamy is involving more than one woman for a sexual partner, a mate. And for you women, it's polyamorous, or polyamory, I believe it's pronounced as, where you have more than one man. And this is where society has well and truly fucked everything up. In other words, they've taken what originally was meant for good and trampled it like, it was nothing. And those of us at the receiving end of it come off much more worse than those that pretend to live a so-called real life when in actuality and reality, when your eyes are open spiritually, that is, you see through all of the bullshit, for one, because they don't have God nor their son Jesus Christ within their life and their circle. Facts. That's how you know that their life is fake. It's imaginary. It's nothing more than an illusion built on a sand dune, or dune, however you pronounce it, rather than a solid concrete foundation. Built, might I add, via the very hands of God himself. And this is why we have the mess that we have, involving friendships and relationships today. And also, I've shared so much on this topic as well, feelings and emotions, when people get heated due to the fact that they're being challenged by their own conscience, as you will. They result in their feelings and emotions. And what happens when people reside within feelings and emotions? It leads them into committing behaviours that are based on impulse, that only lead down self-destructive paths later on, which, might I add, also leads to spiritual and psychological death within the process. And this is why so many people fail. Rather than think logically and rationally, people go on feelings and emotions. And this is why, like I said, the whole system's out of whack. It's out of sync for one, and it's completely screwed everything up. For both sexes, might I add. And until significant change is actually in fact at play, involving the very spiritual and psychological well-being of pretty much humanity's existence, thus including myself, it's only going to get much worse before it gets any better. And again, people go on influence. Now, me personally, I could be influenced to some degree, but it all determines now, doesn't it, on what the influence is about, what it's trying to teach me, and whether or not it's trying to sway me from my faith. If it's trying to sway me from my faith and my relationship with God through His Son Jesus Christ by the Holy Spirit, then, like I said, I will trample any said influence trying to get involved within my life and my free will, and I will quite literally leave it with those that are doing the projecting in the first place. And those of you doing the projecting are going to be the ones worse off, not me. And there we have it. There's another video full of information in regards to human psychology and why we have the mess that we have involving human psychology. Nowadays, people claim to want long-lasting and healthy connections, whether it be a friendship or a relationship. But yet on their behalf, it's always one-sided. It's always what they want, what they need, what they desire. And if they don't get their needs met, they jog you on and throw you under the bus. They even project boredom onto you as well, which is a telltale sign that they are clearly narcissistic, for one, and they are bored of waiting for a genuine realist to approach them. Why should we approach said people that are only looking for opportunities, for one, and self-entitled connections where they take ruthlessly without giving a moment's thought about those that they take from even. Common sense. Why should we actually, in fact, like I said, approach these said people when we know as clear as day, by them displaying these behaviours, they're only going to take from us in the long run and then move on to somebody else? There's no fooling me. There is just no fooling me. I could tell the difference between calm, peaceful, atmospheric presences of another individual in comparison to demonically riddled, infested, parasitic people that are trying to project 24/7. I know the difference between the two. And I'm also able to spiritually discern one another from one another, leaving like-minded presence of, that matches mine within the goat zone, and those doing the demonic projecting even in the sheep zone. And there we have it. And until things, like I said, improve drastically, there's never, and I mean never, going to be real connections within human individuals. Because like I said, for one, a lot of people are opportunists. They're self-entitled, they're self-absorbed, they ruthlessly want to take from others without contributing or putting in to said people's lives that they're taking from. And it's always a one-way street with these said people, rather than a two-way street. What about us that you're taking from then? You bunch of snakes. And is there any wonder, like I said, as to why we've got, you know what? Why should we actually give our fruits to people that are quick enough to take them and trample them and not even contribute? Common sense. Why should we always leave ourselves short in here and in here to make self-entitled, spoiled little brat-like people happy with their life when they've got nothing to contribute to it? We're no longer being taken from. It's game over. It is game over. And one thing I've learnt about human psychology is this. People don't know something good that so happens to come their way until they throw it away by convincing themselves that they can find better and do better. And by the time they come back, it's too late. All bridges are now cut off. I mean, sure, they can hang around and stalk me and do whatever they want, but there is no getting back what they could potentially have had with me, i.e. friendships, relationships, or personally, marriages. I prefer, marriage, because that's the real way of going about life, for spiritual and biblical purposes, that is. But we live in a world that ruthlessly takes 24/7, and we've reached that stage of our awakening now where we've got, you know what? Fuck it. Why should we be taken for granted? Why should we be continuously and ruthlessly taken from without people contributing one way or another? And yes, this does not include the 4, 6, 8, no more than 12 genuine connections I have within my life. And unlike the world's perception of life, I'm not referring to the life from the world's perspective, rather the life within. You get to an age, man, where you just grow sick and tired as well as distant of all the bullshit. It no longer interests you. No longer interests you. When you're continuously trampled on and taken for granted, like I said, you just want to grow distant and withdraw, pretty much, for however long you withdraw from, until you're actually in fact whole again, in here and in here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change this life for the world. I love being, being the person that I am. But when you're constantly taken from, when people kind of try to latch onto your coattails and deplete you of all of your soul's life source, nah, I can't be dealing with that, man. I well and truly can't be dealing with that. If I wanted to raise kindergartens, I would have called a babysitter by now. I would also have a kindergarten school full of more than one fully grown ass, mature souled adult to keep their eyes on you. I don't have time for the fuckery, the disrespect and disgrace. I'm now putting my foot down even harder, even faster. And I'm strengthening my boundaries, whether people like it or not. Because I'm sick and tired of the bullshit. And until people actually begin to acknowledge as to why we are now shutting ourselves off and growing the way that we are, we're going to keep on doing the same. Because people don't even acknowledge as to why we are the way that we are. Because from their warped perception, they're doing everything right. They're doing everything morally. But if they took a step back and reflected on themselves, they would know that they are living out of the old covenant and the new covenant. Therefore, they are an abomination unto the Lord their God. Thy God. And they are rejected and abandoned for their part in living a double-minded life. And in the Bible it says light does not fellowship with darkness. And that is the truth. And until people start reading the biblical manuscript and applying that to their life rather than leaning upon their own understanding, there's forever going to be a goat and a sheep divide going on. In other words, God is snatching the goats from this sheep-like system in order to protect them from getting involved with all dark forces of this world that could potentially lead them astray from their faith later on. And then you've got the sheep that are left by their own accord in order to live the life that they think is a life, until that narrow path draws near and they've got no choice but to, like I say, grow up, evolve, and age in order to embrace the life that was promised onto them, biblically that is. And trust me, they are going to be hating themselves. They are going to be frustrated with themselves when reality hits them that they've wasted all of these years by sticking their overgrown noses within other people's businesses, for one, as well as lives, trying to interfere with their free will, when they could have used all of this time to better themselves. Common sense. It's a wrap.